It is a failure to plan and execute, I believe, more than anything else when it comes to raising money, especially because you have this opportunity. And I know there's some people that may take offense to that, but that's okay. I mean to offend you because your mission is more than just you.
Hey everybody, it's Trevor Nelson with a friendly reminder to make sure that you subscribe, like, and hit that notification bell. We really hope you enjoy the episode. Thanks so much. Hey everybody, thanks so much for tuning in. So yeah, Jason and I were talking, we're talking about recession-proofing your event, and then we end up, going, as opposed to, okay, there's a recession coming, this and that, the other thing, what you need to do, these steps. We went full, we completely went 30,000 foot view. And we're talking about, well, it doesn't matter necessarily. It's great to talk about how to recession proof our event, how to make sure that we have money, or coming through the door before the event even takes place and things of that nature. But it just spurred this really cool conversation that Jason and I are having right now with you all, as a matter of fact, about why you just need to be prepared no matter what. It doesn't have to be necessarily a recession. It doesn't need to, it could be inclement weather, all these things. Jay, talk about why it's so important. Preparedness needs to be paramount when it comes to fundraising and having your event.
Well, it really means to fail-proof your event. How am I going to fail-proof my event? What does that mean? Well, whenever I think about fail-proofing an event, I look at it this way. You've done all this work, putting on a successful event and putting on an event that's not quite as successful takes the same amount of effort. It really does.
No question. Yeah.
They're all hard.
Yeah, you're like, events where we don't hit our goal. You said that last week on our webinar with Susan Adams from Ronald McDonald House Charities, Oklahoma. It's like, hey, I actually really loved it when you said that. Hey, listen, you're going to put the same amount of work in if it ends up being a failure. So why don't let's make it great. You know what I mean? It was like,
yeah.
It sounded so simple.
Well, so, whenever I coach with somebody and we're going through an event and I talk to him, I say, look, I'm a very I want to build it very thoughtfully and conservatively. And what that means is when I say conservatively to do it, that means if we do have a recession, there's a snowstorm, there's a power outage, all these things that are, they're not all going to happen. But if they did, we're still going to hit our goal. That's what I want to do. I just want to make sure that we're going to hit our goal because, again, tremendous amount of effort. For most nonprofits, this is the one time of the year, the one time you're going to have all your current donors, all your prospective donors, all the people that champion your organization are all going to be in one place at one time. And so it's paramount that you take full advantage of that opportunity. Where else are you going to have, 20, 30, 40 people, in, let's say, checkbooks that can write a check for $10,000 and not miss it? Some events have much more than that. And you've got to maximize the opportunity. Maximize the opportunity of relationship, maximize the opportunity of letting them understand the mission, maximizing what you raise for that event right there in the room. All those things have got to happen. And the way that you can do that is being ready for it. And, it's going to take, what's it going to take? Work? Yeah, but it's going to take work anyway. So you might as well put the right work in.
Yeah, no question. Also, super interesting, I keep on referring to in conversations with you the last couple of webinars that we've had some really amazing guests, and a friend of ours, Dan DeLawyer from Ducks Unlimited, champion fundraiser, does, dozens and dozens and dozens of events annually in all different, areas and what have you, big giant, banquets and dinners in New York City. And
they do over 300. I can tell you that in that area, they do probably 400 events a year. Exactly.
So he's got his finger on the pulse, so to speak. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about, and I can't stop saying this, being fast, fluid, and flexible. And what that means also is being prepared for anything that comes your way. Also in a glass half full scenario, and I want you to talk about this too and give some examples, for instance, Jay, where there are opportunities the night of, if you are prepared and you're being fast, fluid, and flexible and thinking on your feet and taking opportunities to meet people that are giving to you for the first time, for instance, there are a tremendous amount of opportunities that inevitably will present themselves the night of that you need to take advantage of, as opposed to watching thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars walk out the door. I think that's part of being prepared as well, even though it's a little bit of a, a fluid situation, if you will. But talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So what I always think of is I'm going to build that if everything goes wrong, we're still going to hit our number.
There you go.
However, but if everything goes right, then we've got enough headroom that we can hit these stretch goals and really blow the door off and set new fundraising records. This goal that we have, and everybody gets caught up in what the goal is. Well, I've got a goal of raising $100,000. Well, yeah, we're at 90% of goal, so we're going to just kind of take it easy now. Are you kidding me? If you're at 90% of goal and you haven't had your event yet, you need to put the hammer down.
Yeah.
You need to really go for it, because this is where you're going to be able to double and triple. And we know this happens because we're seeing organizations do it. Dan mentioned it. I asked him the question, how much do you think you guys do for these deal makings and really being fast, fluid, and flexible and going after it? He said anywhere from 25% to 100% we're adding on to the event total.
Isn't that crazy? Give an example of what that looks like.
Yeah, let me give an example. So here's a real simple example. Let's say that you take a trip. Maybe it's one of our trips, and it was the Kentucky Bourbon Tour, and you put it in the silent auction, and it sold for $4,000, but you also had a backup bidder for $3,900. Because we're going to be fast, fluid, and flexible, we're going to go over to that backup bidder when the auction's finished to say, Trevor, hey, we know you bid $3,900. You're close. We've got another one. Would you be willing to go ahead and take that trip? And he goes, sure, yeah, I would. I didn't know I could do that. That's taking an opportunity because I went and asked a question.
Yeah.
Now, we can say it's 50-50 whether he does or he doesn't, but it's it's 100% if we don't ask.
You got to take a crack at it.
You have to take a crack at it. And if you sit back and wait for them to come to you, they're never going to come because it's not even occurring to them that that's an option. You walk around and you're sitting there talking to somebody and you see them, they've been bidding, and you just happen to go over there and say, wow, thank you so much for helping everybody else buy this stuff, but I sure hope we can find something for you. Have the conversation, and they may say, well, I'd really like to go on that trip. Can you get one of those? Well, as a matter of fact, I can. The auctioneer didn't sell it twice, but I can sell it twice, and I'm going to get it done for you.
Folks don't know what they don't know, and having that conversation, yeah.
I really think that if we open up our minds and to the possibilities of what we can do, it's incredible the things that we can make happen. I think that's but being ready for it and prepared. You can't wait until the night of the event and go, wow, we're not really hitting our number yet. I guess we better go try to shake the trees and make some money. If you've waited till the night of, decide to do this strategy, you're going to fail. If you don't capitalize on it, you'll not get that other chance until next year. And maybe it won't be the same next year. You've got to do it now. And one of the things that says people, it just drives me. I mean, this is really a thing that breaks my heart, quite frankly, is when I'm talking to a nonprofit, I'm talking to somebody and I know they care about what's going on. Like, well, we just decided we're going to wait. We'll just try that next year. A great idea for next year is a great idea for this year.
Yeah. Why wait?
Why in the world are you waiting? Why are you're gambling with your nonprofit? You're literally gambling at this point in time. And I don't ever recommend a nonprofit to gamble. Wait until you get to the night of the event and holding your finger, crossing your fingers going, I hope we have a really good night. Well, that's just, you're taking a huge risk.
Yeah.
And can your nonprofit, what would they do with an extra $50,000? Well, that $50,000 may make up for some gap that's going to come up between now and next year.
Sure, some unforeseen.
And we know that they do.
Yeah, inevitably.
Grants get canceled. We miss out on something. I was part of a nonprofit. I was on the board, and they lost $500,000 in state funding. $500,000 in state funding, poof, went away. Did they expect it? No, not even remotely. Don't be in that situation. That is just, don't do that to your nonprofit.
Yeah, so it was an event. I remember you telling me about it multiple times, obviously. I mean, I talked to you before you went, but it just reminded me of ultra preparedness. It was the YWCA Purple Sash event. It was like 2020, 2021. You did a hybrid event. There were very minimal people in the room, but fundraising goals were hit. And I know it's a great organization. We know people personally at that organization. Like, what are some of the things they did? Share some anecdotes from that evening, just to give folks some perspective. I don't know why I thought of that example, but I just did.
Here's what I remember.
Yeah.
They just didn't leave anything to chance, because instead of having 500-600 people in the room like they would normally have, they're going to have less than 100, and I think they wound up having 80-90 people or something like that, and it was all planned. The people who were going to be there in attendance. The reason I think that did is because their preparedness, because they made phone calls, literally called everybody on the list and just said, would you please make sure that you're going to be on from this time to this time?
Left nothing to chance.
And they didn't leave anything to chance. It's kind of like in an election. You go, hey, you need to go vote. Because what happens is we all think, oh, well, we know how it's going to go. And, we're not, they're not going to miss us. Well, the fact is you will be missed. And if you don't make those personal invitations in this case, because, beforehand, if they're coming, because they're going to send you their guest list, who's going to be sitting at the tables. You've got all that. So they're coming. In this virtual event, you don't know. They may have sent in and said, yeah, okay, we'll be there, pay their whatever because there's not like you're having tickets. But they really made a concerted effort to make sure everybody was on there. They didn't leave anything to chance. That's what I think that's the point of this. What you're getting at, Trevor, is they didn't leave anything to chance. They made sure, because they could not miss a year. I mean, I remember Sammy telling me specifically, she goes, we have to have an event. We are just, and they raise a lot more money outside the event. But they couldn't lose that part of it, because that's about 25% of their budget. Well, 25%, a lot of nonprofits, their event is 50, 75, 100% of their budget. And think about if that thing fluctuates 25, 30%, that's a huge change in your budget, what's available to serve whatever your mission is. And I think that's where this goes into about saying we're going to make sure that no matter what we're going to do, we're going to set a goal to raise 70% of our money before we even walk in the door. Now, that's not the maximum. That's just our minimum. And this is I think, let's look at all of our goals as minimums, not maximums. So if I know that if I want to raise $100,000, and let me just tell you the simple math that I use, it's very simple. Let's say that my net goal to raise is $100,000. What were your expenses? What are your expenses? And it's going to take last year's expenses, add 10% to it, and you're going to be pretty close. Okay. So let's just say that our expenses are going to be $50,000. And these are numbers for general. You can apply your own stuff to this. So that means we've got to have $150,000 is what we've got to raise. Well, 70% of that, if I go to my handy dandy calculator here, 150,000 times 0.7 is 105. That means I need to have $105,000 walking in the door minimum, not maximum, minimum. Okay. So how am I going to get there? Well, I'm going to sit there and look at what are my sponsorship levels? Now, for me, whenever I think about sponsorships and underwriting, I mean two things, but they're very distinct in my mind. Sponsorship is what somebody's going to pay, and that comes with tickets to come to the event. Underwriting means that somebody's just going to pay for something that's happening at the event, and there's no tickets that come with it.
Love it.
Use whatever vernacular you want to use, but that's just whenever I'm speaking of these things, that's what I'm talking about. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at my sponsorship level. Well, if last year the most money that I ever paid, I ever got was $10,000, I'm going to look to raise my sponsorship level up $5,000, $10,000. If you don't ask for $20,000, nobody's going to give it to you necessarily.
Good call.
Here's a real interesting thing too. Somebody had raised their rate up significantly, and the person that had always been at the second level, let's just say it was $7,500, and their top level was $10,000. So that they never could get him to go to 10, but they raised their total level up to $20,000 and their second level up to $15,000, and he took the $15,000. Well, come to find out, the guy just had a rule: I don't ever pay for the first, I always pay for the second deal. That's just
There's
what
a lot of
he did.
psychology behind that, as a matter of fact.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's just, I don't want to be the biggest hat in the room, but I don't want to be the smallest either.
Speaks to more people than you think. Yeah.
So look at your sponsorship levels. If you don't ask, and guess what? If you're asking for $50,000 and nobody takes it, well, that's okay.
Get 225.
Because if you sell two or three $25,000, then
Yeah.
you're doing all right. So, but if you don't ask, you will not get. Nobody's going to come up there and go, "Hey, you know what? I'd really like to give you 50,000."
And volunteer it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just typically doesn't happen. Now, sometimes it does. We heard a great example of how that does happen. When somebody says, "Well, how much do you need?" And hopefully, we're having these conversations with these people, these sponsors, and not just leaving it saying, "Well, I sent you an email, and hopefully he's going to respond." Pick up the phone and call him, for goodness sakes. It's so the next thing, and we've got a little calculator that we've created. If anybody ever wants to, you can just reach out to us and we'll share it. It's just a little spreadsheet calculator that we do. We kind of keep making it better all the time, but eventually we're going to put it on the website. It's just not quite website ready, but it works now. But let's just say that you have, you got 300 people that you believe are going to be in the room, and you've got 10 tops. That's 30 tables. Well, just write your stuff down and see what it's going to take to get your numbers there. So, if you said, okay, I've got a $25,000 table and a $15,000 table and a $10,000 table and a $7,500 and a $5,000 and a $2,500. Okay. I'm just making this up. And here's the way to set your bottom on your table. Well, we know if our expenses are $50,000, you divide that by 30, it's $1,666 is what it's costing us per table to have somebody come. So we absolutely can't go below that. So at $2,500, you're making money.
Love it.
And then you just go down and do the math and see how many you have to sell. Well, if we sell one of the 25s, three of those, three of these, four, let's say we sold 10 of those, and what's the balance leave us? So and what I'm doing is I'm just basically counting this up. So, 10 for 5, 4, 7,500, 3 for 10,000, 3 at 15, and 1 at 25,000. So right there, that's 21 tables. That means it leaves me 9 tables. Now, what's that math come out to? Well, you start calculating that way and seeing how much money you're going to raise before you ever sell the tables.
Love it.
And, I know everybody that, they'll say, well, what about individual tickets? Well, if you sell out of tables, you don't need to sell individual tickets.
Call. Explain the difference one more time for folks listening. The way you classify sponsorships and underwriting as it applies to table sales and pre-event dollars?
So as we just talked about the table sponsorships, that's what I classify as sponsorship. That's just, it's going to have a table with it. There's going to be an attendance, we want you to come. So let's just say that I'm just going to take a little time and do the math here. So if we did do that, okay, if we sold the tables, as I mentioned, all right, that would be 25,000 plus 45,000 plus, that's $195,000. Awesome. Okay. Well, that's if you sell all those, but let's just say that you don't. Let's just say that you raise, but you do work your program and you get down to the bottom and you sold $120,000. This isn't the time to let off the gas and coast. This is the time to step on the gas and go get more. So that brings us to the underwriting part. Anything that costs you money doesn't cost you money. That's bolted down, not bolted down. You can put an underwriting opportunity with it. Let me give you some examples. Check in, check out. Those are two separate ones. Technology, your auction software. Red carpets, one I love because it's a high deal. The golden ticket raffle, you can get that underwritten. All these things, we know people that do the refreshing stations, the bathrooms. They put a sign out front that says refreshing station brought to you by ABC Plumbing Company, whatever. And all those things. And people are looking for opportunities to help your organization. So let's just say I call you up, Trevor, and I say, hey, Trevor, our event's going to be on October 15th. Sure would love for you and Shelby to be there. And you go, oh, shoot, Jason, sorry. We're going to be out of town that week. We've already got a trip planned. Hey, not a problem. I'm not even going to pause a minute. Normally what everybody says is, well, hopefully next year you guys can come. Not me. I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to shoot you an email right now. And it's going to have all these ways that you guys can help. And I know that you can. I know that you care. And so would you please just take a look and see where you'd like to be? And I'm going to send them this list. And if you're using auction software, a lot of them, you can put all these underwriting opportunities on the software, send a link, and they can see it in real time. They can click on it and go pay for it right then. And if you've never done this before, it's a really awesome opportunity because all those people that are going to tell you that they can't come, half of them will do something.
I want to interrupt, Jay. I want to add 3 points. If you're not familiar with sponsorships and underwriting, in our way, the HGA way, the way that Jason just dictated, email us, jason@hgafundraising.com or trevor@hgafundraising.com, or go to hgafundraising.com, click on the free coaching tab. I believe it's in the About Us section of the new website. Sign up for a session. We'll give you time for free where we can talk about this. 2, there are folks that are invited to 20 events a year that don't want to fill up a table. There's table fatigue. They want an underwriting opportunity because they don't want to have to fill up another 10 top or 8 top, whatever the size of the table might be. It might be the CEO at the bank, president at the bank, whatever, the person at the healthcare, foundation locally or what have you. Folks that you do want in the room that just have table fatigue. They're going to want to jump all over underwriting opportunities. We've talked about this ad nauseum. 3rd, we have talked about this ad nauseum. Just about every other episode, we talk about sponsorships and underwriting. Every other podcast, most of the webinars, we touch on it at some point or another. There's a good reason for it, because it's, once again, coming full circle. It is all about the fact that no matter what happens the night of, what's happening in the world, what we've done to set ourselves up for success for this evening. And it's all about preparedness, and sponsorships and underwriting are a big layer of that. And there's a way to go about it. As Jay's mentioned, we have a science, and it's formulaic for us at this point. So take us up on that.
Well, no, and you bring a really good point up, because let's just say that you're going through your sales and you haven't got your $25,000 table sold yet. Maybe you've only sold one for 15 and one for 10, and everybody else is signing up for $2,500 tables. Well, maybe your approach, you need to change that, but you need to do it now. Don't wait until the event, the night of the event, or a week before the event to make that change. Maybe you got to pick up the phone and start calling people that have donated to you in a big way and say, hey, look, we're really struggling here on this top table, and I need you to come in and help us. And everybody goes, well, you don't want to. If you're talking to people that are your significant donors that have capacity, they want to see you succeed and they want to see you win. And when you call and you have a candid conversation, we've got the $15,000, the $10,000, the $5,000, the $2,500 tables, they're selling out. But we really need somebody for that $25,000 table. And so I thought of you. Well, number one, they're not going to be offended because you thought of them. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to go ahead and say, sure, sign me up. But maybe they can help you get on. Have you thought about calling Trevor? Have you thought about calling Fred? Have you thought about calling Sally? I know she's got plenty of capacity, and I know she really cares about that. Has she been there lately? No, she hadn't been there the last couple of years. It's a good idea. Maybe it's somebody that's fallen through the cracks and we just missed them. This is an exercise in relationship building. Yeah. I mean, all these things, but we're not going to wait. We're going to go get it. And, coming back to the underwriting, we put all these things down. Let's say that I've got to raise 105 and I'm at 120. And then I go raise another $25,000 in underwriting just because I went to work and put some time in this. So now I've got $145,000 that I'm walking in the door with before, we've served a single drink, before we've, had any meals, anything's happened. We're already right at our goal. Pretty much, we could just at that point, the whole thing could blow up and we're going to be okay.
Go. There could be a storm. The roof could cave in.
I mean, I'm just saying, because we did this preparation and this work. And, we talk about this a lot, Trevor, because we're really, we're in our world, we kind of look at the tip of the spear kind of thing for the economy and what's going on. And we're like, well, we'll just make it up in volume. And maybe that's what happens. Maybe you got to get creative. Maybe that you got to go back to your tables and go, okay, let's break down every table of attendance last year and who spent what money. And if you're not tracking all that, you got to start tracking it because it's really important. Well, there was a couple that came and sat with Trevor at his table, and they spent $15,000. Have we talked to them to see if maybe they want to underwrite? Because I know the last couple of years they keep coming with them and we send them thank yous, but nothing's really happened. Maybe there's a way we can get them to do something on the underwriting side, because I know they're not going to want to come to a table, because I talked to Trevor and he said, yeah, they were going to come with it. So maybe we can go out and offer them, there's all these things that you can do. Leave no stone unturned. Make sure that you turn over every leaf. The whole saying, if you turn over enough leaves, you're bound to find an acorn every once in a while. Well, turn them all over. Get your blower out and blow them all up, and let's really see what's going on out there. And I think you might be
I love
surprised because even though you may be having, some people may be struggling financially, it is going to happen at time. Maybe the weather is acting a little bit wonky, but if we do all these things beforehand, we can ensure that we're going to make it. That's what we've got to do. We've got to ensure that our mission, and not only to meet our goal, but to exceed our goal.
Yeah, don't let off.
And that's what it does. That's what this whole exercise does.
You said this 4 times. You've said it once on this pod. Don't let your foot off the gas.
Do not ever.
Yep.
I can't tell you how many, it's interesting that it kind of is, there's a repeating effect. We'll talk to somebody and kind of help them lay out some of the plans, and then find out that, well, we just decided not to do that. Well, we just decided, we thought we were probably pretty good, and so we didn't. And it's almost without exception, when they didn't do everything that they could have done, they fall short.
No question.
And then they start making excuses.
Yeah.
And they start going, well, we know the economy's kind of tough. No, stop. That's not an excuse, because we've already talked about it.
Yeah.
That's not an excuse because, well, we had a snowstorm. Nope, not going to work. That's an excuse. It is a failure to plan and execute, I believe, more than anything else when it comes to raising money, especially because you have this opportunity. And I know there's some people that may take offense to that, but that's okay. I mean to offend you, because your mission is more than just you. The mission that you're there, you should be sold out. You were talking about Dan the other day when he came on our webinar, and he said, if you're not willing to sell out and be that way for this organization, then you need to go find another organization to work with.
Once again, it's not easy. Like you said, I love the way you put it.
But heck, it's hard
anyway. It takes
the
same amount of work to have an event that doesn't hit the mark as it does for an event that exceeds the mark. I love it. In closing, I think that's a great reminder to folks. It's so hard to fundraise. We don't have it all figured out. I totally get it. But, well, I should say we do actually kind of have it figured out, right? But it takes a lot of steps without that.
Well, we've got a pretty good track record. I mean, if we follow
Absolutely.
the plan.
Yeah. Have a plan. Hey, another nudge, everybody, reach out to us, go to the website, click on the free coaching button. We'll spend a half hour with you going over these numbers, creating your own formula for success for your event. We're happy to do it. And can't thank you all enough for tuning in.
And you've got nothing to lose. I mean, you don't have to use any of our stuff. There's no prerequisite. There's no, hey, we're going to send you a bill. We don't do that. But I'm telling you, bring a challenge. Bring it. Because I love to dig into this stuff and take it apart and look at it and go, okay, here's what you can do. And, there was a young lady who I was able to coach, and they had never sold a $25,000 sponsorship before. And I kind of knew the area they were in. And I just said, why don't you ask for 50,000? And she said, why? I said, well, you've been asking for the same thing for the last 5 years and nothing's changed. Do something different to shake it up, because the people that you're sending this to are going to go, hey, there's something going on here. What's going on? Wow, they're $50,000 tables now. And she called me back, just nearly had tears in her eyes. I think she did. It was on the phone though, so I couldn't tell. But she said, not only did we sell a $50,000, but we sold 3 $25,000 sponsorships. $125,000 in 4 sponsorships that they had never, ever gotten anything close to that. And I said, what changed? And she said, we asked.
Oh,
we asked.
Wow. You'll never get if you don't ask. That's really true. Yeah. Love it. I love it, brother.
Well, and I think everybody has this idea that we're going to print all this stuff up and, we've got to print all these things and all this stuff and people are going to do this and there's a propriety. No, there's not. It's all about raising money. It's about raising money for your mission. That's what this is about. That's what your mission is on the line. And I'm going to make a prediction that in the next 36 months, there are going to be a lot of nonprofits that are going to go away because they're not doing these things and they're just half-assed getting through their fundraisers because it's been kind of easy the last few years. And I know it's been hard, but comparatively it's been somewhat easy. And there's a lot of money in the system, but I think it's going to, and the competition's going to get tough. And But here's the other thing. I think the ones that survive are going to thrive.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening. If you love our podcast, click the download button, rate us, and follow us on social media at HGA Fundraising. Get out there, start fundraising, and raise more money. See you next time.